Well, Flip the Script, Season 3, here we are. And I'm excited about all that I think we're going to learn. If you're a first-time listener to the podcast, maybe you've not listened to any of the first 2 seasons, the idea of the Flip the Script podcast, take a moment and bring you in is, man, all of our life happens in our mind. Really, before anything happens in our external, before we end up doing something, before an action happens, we thought about it first. And you've heard it said potentially before. It's written in a ton of books. If you want to change your life, change the way you think. When you change your thoughts, you change your life. And so that's a lot of what this is about. It's helping leadership, helping relationships. I hope in every aspect of your life. And one of the things that I love to do with this podcast is answer any specific questions that you might have or somebody you know has. So please let us know. Drop a message, send an email, something you'd love to see covered on the podcast. And later this season, love to answer those questions for you. Before I get into this first episode of Season 3, I wanted to throw out a challenge. So I'm one of those guys who likes a good challenge. And if you are a part of our Flip the Script community, if you're becoming a part of the Flip the Script podcast community, then I think we can all jump into these challenges together. And so they're going to kind of be monthly. And so for the first one, it's going to be for those that really want to grow in some self-discipline. So challenge number 1 for the month of October, no sugar October. You know what that means. Fall is here, right? It's every sweet drink you can imagine. Halloween ends the month and everybody gets so excited about the Halloween candy. And I'm saying no sugar October. Here's the thing, is that for us to be able to have healthy minds and healthy thoughts, one of the things we want to do is actually remove those things that are fake and false, not just in our thinking, but actually physical contents we put in our body. And so much of that sugar, it's refined, it's unhealthy, it's bad for us. It actually affects the way we think. So for those of you that want to be a part, October, no sugar October. It's going to be fun. It's going to be challenging. Love for you to be a part. For this first episode of season number 3, I want to talk about something that makes us human. Now, I know that you think about that, at least some, I hope, that you are human. You're watching this, you're listening to this. Maybe you have your dog or your cat with you. They are not human, right? You're human. There's something interesting about human, something about being human that separates us from every other species, and that's our ability to tell stories. Think about it. So much of what we know in life has been passed down through story. For thousands of years, history has been taught through story. We know things about our friends. We know things about our parents, our grandparents. Our kids know things about us. We know things about our kids from the use of story. We all understand story, but I began to think about the fact that we tell ourselves a lot of stories. In fact, part of being human is that we have the ability to tell ourselves stories. And when you hear a story, it always evokes emotion. It always causes you to feel encouraged, maybe, let's be honest today, maybe a little bit outraged. It causes a response when you hear story. What do the stories you tell yourself cause? When you and me tell ourselves a story, what happens? I want to talk today about self-storytelling, the stories we tell ourselves. You might even think about it like this. How is my storytelling hygiene? Because if it's healthy, we will notice it. I want to help us today with this. And if this is helpful to you, I would love to hear about it. Share this podcast out there. Send us a message. Want to make sure this is helping you in your thinking, in your life. What do your stories to yourself tell you about yourself? Some questions to ask. I think there's going to be 7. We might end up with 5 or 8. I have a lot written down. We'll see where we land here in this first episode. The stories you tell yourself. These are questions that you can ask so that you know you're telling yourself stories that are true, but also build you up to fulfill God's purpose for your life. Number 1, when you tell yourself a story, are you the victim or the champion? When you tell yourself a story, are you the victim or a champion? So much of life is filled with people who walk through life with what we call a victim mentality. They may have learned it from their parents. They may have learned it from their friends or their grandparents. And when we live our life with a victim mentality, the story we tell ourselves always starts with us being the ones on the short end of the stick. It always starts with us playing dodgeball in elementary school, and we're the last one that got picked because nobody liked us. It always starts with us being the one that's going to end up defeated. If it seems good right now, it just must not be done because I know nothing ever ends well. That's a victim thought process. And when you tell yourself stories, if you want to fulfill God's purpose, if you want to find yourself walking in the things that God has for you, walking in the things that your friends and family need for you, when you tell yourself stories, you got to see yourself as the champion. Now, obviously, if you've been a part of this community, you know this. If you're a first-time listener or watcher today, welcome. I'm a Christian. I'm a pastor. And so when I say that you're a champion, that's because I know what God says about us. That's because I know what he says about you because he made you on purpose for a purpose. And it is all the lies of culture that come in, and I begin to see myself as a victim. And if I tell myself stories regularly in my mind that way, I will end up walking that truth out. I want to flip that. I want to know that our stories have us as the champion. Number 2, when you tell yourself a story, are you on the journey or have you already arrived? Are you on the journey or have you already arrived? You see, the thing about arriving at a destination is we're excited we're there. It implies something, and typically it implies it's over. We've reached it. This is it. Whether good or bad, this is the pinnacle. This is the stopping point. And the reality is, if there's breath in our lungs, we're still on the journey. If we're still able to listen, we're still able to move about, we're still able to breathe, there is purpose in our life. We're on the journey. And so when I'm telling myself a story about me, about what I think, about others, about what my future holds, it's so important that recognizes life's not over. I'm not at the end. I'm on the journey. And because I'm on the journey, there are still good things ahead. Question number 3, I want to help us with today in telling ourselves good stories. Ask yourself, are you alone or are you in relationship with others? When you tell yourself a story, are you alone or are you in relationship with others? You know, we live in a society that talks about needing to be on your own, strong on your own. I was driving home the other day, yesterday morning. In fact, I had gone to a 5 a.m. workout class, which I was just telling some of the guys recording this, the 5 a.m. workout class is, we'll just say it's an interesting group of people. It's a little too early for me. I don't know how often in my life I'm going to repeat the 5 a.m. workout class. But anyway, I'm driving home and I see this truck in front of me and it has this bumper sticker. It's not a bumper sticker, it's a window sticker, which, by the way, when did we decide we should put so many stickers on our windows? Anyway, it has this big custom-made sticker and it says self-made. And I don't know how you'll receive what I'm about to say, but I read that and literally my heart sank and I felt compassion for the person driving that vehicle because I thought, what a weight they must carry in their life that they think everything is because of them. You see, we live in a society that says you need to be able to go it alone. We live in a culture that says you need to be strong without somebody there to help you. In fact, we end up elevating that. So when it comes to the stories that I tell myself, the stories that go in my mind, the question I have for me, the question I have for you today is, are you by yourself or is your relationship with others a part of the story? God made me, he made you, he made his humanity to be in relationship with others. And every story that we tell ourselves needs to include relationships with others, people that have come into our life to help us, people that are to be a part of the journey, people that maybe if you don't see them yet, they are still in store in the future. When you tell yourself a story, don't go it alone. Make sure there are people in relationship with you. Make sure your story includes others. When you tell yourself a story, here's a question that you can ask yourself. Do you have what it takes? Do you have what it takes? Now, I asked that question after alone versus relationships because having what it takes is the part you bring. Yes, others will be involved. Yes, God will be involved. But when you tell yourself a story, do you have what it takes? A lot of times, all it takes is just consistently showing up. So I want to tell you today, don't quit. I want to tell you today that it's not a moment, no matter what's happening in your life, no matter what you're walking through, if it's chaos at work, if it's chaos with kids, if it's chaos with spouse, if it's chaos with parents, whatever it would be, don't quit. That story, that script that you write, that story you tell, does it say you have what it takes? You know, I know for me, whenever I find myself in those stressful moments, and I have stressful moments because I'm human. And I have stressful moments because I'm a parent, and I have stressful moments because I'm a boss, I'm a leader. I have stressful moments because I pastor. I have stressful moments because there's a lot that goes on. And so when those things come at me, I have to remind myself, I'm in this position because God brought me to this position. Therefore, I have what it takes. As a Christian, I know that's because God's with me. If you're a follower of Jesus today, you can say, I have what it takes, the story I tell, because I know I'm walking with God with me. Number 5, when you're telling yourself a story, what lessons have you learned from your past? What lessons have you learned from your past? I don't know if you're like me, but sometimes I'm being like, come on, let's have a little fun today. And I'll be like, come on, Michael. It's always fun when you're by yourself and you yell at yourself by name. And, you hope you do that not often when other people are around, because if they're around, well, they might laugh at you. But the truth is there's a good chance that they do it also. So, but that story, right? When that story begins to go in your life, are you learning from your lessons? Are you learning from your mistakes? Are you learning lessons? Or are you just repeating the same things? I'm not talking about in what you actually do. I'm talking about in the story you tell yourself. Before it ever actually happens in person, it happens in your mind. Before you ever actually do it, it happens in your mind. I think a lot of times we repeat the same mistakes because we tell ourselves a story that says we have not learned a lesson. What if we flip that? What if we start telling ourselves stories that make a declaration? I've learned a lesson from this. I won't repeat that same mistake. I kind of have a feeling we might find ourselves improving. We might find ourselves more becoming who we were made to be, fulfilling purpose. So if I'm going to tell myself good stories, if I'm going to have a healthy self-storytelling hygiene, when I tell myself a story, I've learned lessons. I don't just repeat the same mistakes. Number 6, does God play a role in your story, present and future? If you want to tell yourself good stories, does God play a role in your story, present and future? The truth is this: the past is the past, and you can be forgiven, you can be redeemed, you can move forward from the past, whatever it is. When you're telling yourself a story about the present, when you're telling yourself a story about the future, if God's not a part of it, it's not going to end successful. And so I want to encourage you today. A lot of the times, the reason we might feel extra anxious, maybe we feel a little bit overwhelmed, maybe we're like, I'm just not sure I got it. It's because we haven't made God a part of the story we're telling ourselves. If you're going to have a healthy story, make sure God is a part, present and future. Number 7, I'm going to stop here today. When you tell yourself a story, what is bigger, God or your problem? Now, don't just jump over that, because if you're a follower of Jesus and you hear that, you're like, God's bigger. But I'm asking honestly, when you tell yourself that story, when that script is written, when you're thinking about what's going on in your life, is God bigger or is the problem bigger? The truth is that most problems in our life only have power because we've made them bigger than our God. It doesn't matter if it's at home. It doesn't matter if it's at work. It doesn't matter if it's something from 10 years ago or 10 minutes ago. Most of our problems only have power continually because we keep them bigger than our God. That doesn't mean we're not going to have to deal with stuff. That doesn't mean people don't have trauma. That doesn't mean we don't have to get counseling and get help. But what I want you to know is that it doesn't have to stay sustained in that place. That when you tell yourself a story about who you are, about your present, and about your future, is God bigger or is your problem bigger? And if God is bigger, my promise to you is that your stories will be stronger and your stories will begin to propel you. I've heard it said like this often: gaze at God, glance at the problem. Gaze at God, glance at the problem. If you want your story to include a God that is way bigger and a problem that is way smaller, then fix your gaze on God and let that problem begin to lose its power. You can do this. We can flip the script. We can tell ourselves good stories, come on, that then play out in our life and we see the incredible happen. Hey, season 3, episode 1, we're going to tell ourselves good stories all month long. And if you're going on that no sugar challenge, no sugar October, let me know. Let's hold each other accountable. Let's encourage each other. Let's keep flipping the script. Because when you change your thoughts, you change your life.